since I joined the class, I think I've gotten a lot better of understanding of definitely reading comp, LR, and then the logic games is probably still the most challenging, but it's just I kind of wrote a list down of like what I needed to work on going forward. It's just kind of making diagrams, I guess, looking at the question it's asking on the LSAT exam and being able to diagram it quick enough where in the last like 3-4 minutes, all the diagrams are right there. So it's very quick to answer the question. So that's kind of the trickiest one for me. But I feel like reading comp and LR is coming along actually pretty well.
Nice. That's great to hear. I'm glad those sections are going well. I'm glad to do whatever I can to help you out with the logic games. One initial comment I'll make here is that not every game lends itself to making several main diagrams up front. It's great when it happens. It does happen sometimes, but it doesn't happen all the time. And so part of being flexible and adaptable in games is being able to draw more hypotheticals over the course of the game when necessary.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there was one yesterday that we did just on the 24/7 Hangout, and it didn't really require for me to make a diagram upon looking at the question. It just required basically looking at the conditions and saying, one of them was very easy. If this one person goes in front of that person, it's going to be impossible for that person to be the first 1 to 3 spots. So I think that's it. It's just kind of the ordering games where it kind of is. I had a couple questions that I have for like the tutors, but it's just kind of when the ordering is required, it's sometimes hard to determine all the slots, like 1 through 8, for example, which one can go through either one. So I'm just kind of working on that, but feel like it's going pretty well.
Good. Well, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. Any particular questions you have for me?
I guess what's your best suggestion? I know I just read your kind of like bio of how you struggled in the beginning. What was like when you look at logic game questions, how do you like configure in your head that you're going to diagram it a certain way, or the rules, like the if questions on logic games sometimes trick me up. The first question, just ordering it, no problem. I could do that within 30, 45 seconds. It's just the if questions or the change of condition questions. I did actually one yesterday and I got it right. But how do you like approach that in your head, I guess?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll address the local if question first. What I would do is I would do the orientation question, which, as you said, is kind of like a gimme. And then for a local if question, I would immediately make a new diagram if no previous hypothetical is relevant. I make a new diagram. I plug in, if they say if X is on 3, then what must be true? Put X on 3, see what other rules relate to X and see what rules relate to slot 3. And then that can help you make some inferences for that particular scenario before you then go to the choices, because the choices and the question is really all based on your ability to see the deduction that follows from the local if conditions. So I would just look at the rules and see which rules relate to that.
Okay.
And you want to get comfortable at drawing new hypotheticals quickly. You don't need to make them comprehensive in terms of numbering all the slots or rewriting all the rules, just something that lets you get out of the trap of trying to do it all in your head. You put something down that reflects whatever is essential and then take it from there if no previous hypotheticals relate. Regarding rule substitution questions, I actually have a workshop on these specifically. I'll send you the link after this call. I did a full-length class just on those where I give you some advice on how to drill them and the different frameworks for solving them.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then just the other question, kind of like on LR, actually specifically on LR, questions 16 through 20, I struggle on. So the first 10, no problem. I'll go through that usually within a minute. And then the 10 to 15 range, I usually have gotten real solid at getting all those right. But when it comes to 16 to 20, I've noticed no matter the question, well, actually, I guess sometimes the question applies to it. I get most of those wrong, those 4 wrong. And then the 20 to 26, 20 to 25, I'll get most of them right. So I don't know, like if you struggled with that as well, that midsection. I don't think it's a concentration issue. I just didn't know if any suggestions, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, those are the hardest questions in this section. The LR questions are in a general order of difficulty, but 16 to 20 or so is actually where you're going to find a lot of the hardest ones. So that's not especially surprising. There's nothing unique about you having trouble with those. It's just they've ramped up the difficulty on those. And so you might focus on those in particular. If you wanted to just drill tough questions, just open up any LR section and work on 16 to 20 or 15 to 22 or so to find those level 5 toughest questions, and then see which tricks and traps you might be falling for there, which unconventional or counterintuitive methods of reasoning you might see in those arguments. Okay. Because a lot of the easier questions are pretty typical, straightforward. They'll use the same methods of reasoning over and over. But on the toughest ones, they tend to exploit typical real world assumptions we would make. Like, you might not expect a doctor to be a smoker, and you might not expect a smoker to want to ban smoking in public places. So that could be that's a surprising situation that you might miss what they're actually saying there, but of course it's entirely possible. Okay. So getting used to recognizing that, hey, they can throw you for a loop and what that looks like, it's good to practice those.
Okay. Yeah, the workshop would help as well too. I'll look for that one, but if you could send that, that'd be great. And then just a general one, I'm planning to take the test probably March or April, because I'm trying to apply for the June deadline for fall of 2022 admissions. So do you think taking it even in April, is that cutting it too close with the admissions? I know it takes usually about 2 weeks to get the score back, or do you think that's kind of a fine benchmark?
It's a little bit on the later side, but which school is this? Which schools are you considering?
Probably Pace. I'm in the New York area, so Pace. I'll throw some applications at those top schools if I get the higher score. But Pace, I did see their application deadline is June for the fall of 2022 admission. So I didn't know if I took the test in April or March, if automatically they're going to cross out me just because it's later in the process, I guess.
No, they won't automatically cross you off the list just for applying a bit later. There might be less scholarship money available applying a little bit later in the cycle. It might be a little bit tougher, but that is counterbalanced by getting a higher LSAT, of course. All else being equal, I do recommend typically applying the next cycle instead, so you can apply at the beginning. But of course, there are costs to waiting as well. So it's a personal decision, but there's, of course, pros and cons for each way.
Okay. And then if I held off on applying, I would apply for the spring admissions.
Yeah, that's a good way to go on it. That some schools like Pace, I believe, have spring admissions as well, right? Not every school does, but that could be another way to avoid having to wait an entire year.
Okay. I'm planning probably next week to call Pace. I don't know if you recommend that, just the admissions, try to get a gauge on if, applying or taking the test when I am planning to, and then applying during that time frame, if they know, if there is scholarship money around, if that's, an okay deadline for them. I don't know if you recommend that or not. When I was applying to Northeastern, I went there, to the school, talked to the admissions people, talked to financial aid, and they kind of answered those questions. So I didn't know if you thought, I know law school is a little different, if they would do the same, I guess. Yeah,
it's okay to ask. I mean, they want you to apply. They want to help you out. So, of course, you got to take what they say with a grain of salt, because they have their own interests as well. Right. But it's definitely, it would not hurt to ask. It's a good way to demonstrate interest. And then you could always apply, see what scholarships you get or don't get, and then say, based on that, maybe I want to reapply next cycle in the hopes of getting more. Okay. And that doesn't reapply. If I did apply, my goal for the LSAT score is probably 165 would be great for me. I think just looking at specifically Pace University, that would put me in a good spot for scholarship money. 160 would be kind of the low end of what I wanted to get. I think I can get in that 165 if, hopefully everything goes right on test day. But reapplying or applying, I get in, but they don't give me as much money. If I reapplied for the spring semester or another semester, that doesn't hurt my chances of being accepted again. Is that correct? No, I don't think it would hurt your chances at all. And you can tell them that whatever the outcome was, let's say they accepted you with low scholarship money. You say, I'd love to come, but I'm not able to afford at this price, taking on the debt and such. So you can attempt to negotiate it a little bit. Or if it doesn't work out, you can then reapply at the beginning and say, I'm still very interested. I want to go to your school. It's just the money was the issue.
Okay. Okay.
And
And then
when you call them next week, you can attempt to look to build that relationship and show your interest, so that if you didn't take their offer, you reach out and let them know why. They know who you are.
okay. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. And then just lastly, just with the study, and I usually do. So like this morning I did like 8 a.m. to like 10. I got 2 good hours of logic games and LR, and then obviously the live class I'll go on tonight. And then after the live class, a few people on the tutoring class do the 24/7 hangout for like an hour or two. Just with logic games, I know on the diagnostic test, I got a 150, and I had no clue what the hell I was doing. So, and the logic games, I think I got maybe a handful, and that's putting it like nicely right. So, just like, what was your? I mean, I saw the score that you eventually got. What's your biggest like advice on the logic game section, I guess, and how to, I guess, approach those 4 games? Like, would you look at each one and say, okay, this one is probably going to be the easiest one. Let me do those 2 first, or do the hardest first? I guess in general, what was your best strategy you found?
Yeah, sure. So I would just do them in the order given. And for 175, you got to solve everything. For 165, you also got to solve everything. And typically 165 and up, you're getting close to perfect on logic games and losing a few points on the other sections. But games, you really want to get close to perfect, if not perfect. So you're going to do them all. I would just do them in the order given. It takes time to decide the order in which to do things. And then I would also look to and just practice. Practice and repetition is really, really key on games, because they do relate to each other so much, but they're mixing and matching different elements from different games together in new combinations. So I think the biggest thing for me was just exposure to a lot of games. I would aim to do ideally every game ever released if you can. And you've got some time until you take it. So that isn't a totally crazy goal to take on. And there's only 1 game section per exam, not like LR where the released ones usually have 2. So I would aim to do a lot of games and then redo them as well. I mean, I'm not a naturally logic games person or oriented person by nature. Math is not my thing, but I ended up doing great on games because I kept repeating them.
Okay. And even if I mastered like the reading comp and LR section, really to get that 165, I need to get the logic games, all of them right.
Yeah, all of them, or most of them at least. I mean, of course, it's technically possible to get perfect on reading comp and lose some points on games, but it happens far less often because reading comp and LR, they have those seeming ambiguities of language where math is and logic games are a bit more clear cut.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I'll take a game, kind of forget about it for a few days, and then practice it again. And then if I still don't understand it, kind of go through the questions. Not really I guess the right answer and why it's right, but more of why I picked the wrong one. So I feel like that's helping a little bit. But yeah, that's what I mean. I've been focusing on LR and reading comp as well, but I'll do definitely multiple logic games just to ensure that I'm trying to understand it more. I think I'm understanding the diagrams. It's just some questions or games, it's hard to determine how to put it into a specific diagram, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's where drilling comes in. If you do a bunch of games of one type in a row, you see the connections between them better. Like if you're doing grouping in out games, I was doing a bunch of those in a row with those conditional chains, you see the patterns there. And you'll see my class on rule substitution questions, same deal, where if you do a bunch of rule sub questions specifically in a row, you see the common patterns in terms of how to go about solving them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go through each of the workshops. I've been going through most of them. Obviously, a lot more to go through, but I'll just keep going through them. And I ask the tutors the questions that I get, or the tutors, like the diagram in, how to approach each question. So I feel like it's going well. That was really the only questions I really kind of had, just specific to mostly the logic game section has been the hardest. But other than that, like the personal statement I've been working on, I'm going to probably submit it soon. And the reading comp and LR, like some questions, like principles was hard for me for a while, but then I've started to really get a hold of that. So I think it's just for that, it's just understanding the language. Logic games is just entirely, I think, practice, because I'm not a math person either. I've never been good at those types of questions. So I think I just have to repeatedly, practice, and hopefully it comes together well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll send you those links. I'll send you a link on the rule sub questions. I'll also send you a link on reviewing those tough LRs as well. And keep doing what you're doing. You're really putting in the work, I can see, and reach out if you need anything at all. I'm happy to help.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll email probably in a few weeks. Upon, reviewing all the workshops, upon taking more tests, I'll just send you an update on how I felt with some of the logic games. And if I guess if I continue to struggle, maybe any suggestions, that would be great.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely. I'll be happy to do it.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you so much. Is there any other questions for me, or anything I need to kind of update you on with any of the tests so far, or no?
No, not right now at this point. I mean, as it gets closer, I'm sure you'll have more. Just reach out. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you need anything.
Thanks so much for this course. It's tremendously been helpful, so I appreciate it.
No, I'm really glad to hear it.
Yeah, thanks so much. It's really, the tutors are really well articulated with how they explain everything, and the online website is great to navigate. So thanks again.
No, I'm good. I'm glad you're enjoying. I'm glad you're finding it useful. Let me know any other feedback.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.